The plan was simple, or so it seemed on paper. Blend in, find the heirloom, and get out before the cake is cut, Marcus had said with his usual smirk, the kind that made you question if he truly believed in the plan or just enjoyed the chaos of it all. But weddings weren't my scene, and the thought of mingling with high society while wearing an ill-fitting tuxedo already had me breaking into a cold sweat. I adjusted my bow tie in the mirror, trying to get used to the polished version of myself. "Relax, Jack," said Clara, walking up behind me. She was the mastermind of this operation, her confidence always unnerving. "No one's going to suspect a thing. You just have to keep your eyes open, your glass full, and your hands clean until we're ready." "And what about you?" I asked, turning to see her in a midnight blue gown that seemed designed to turn heads. "How are you blending in?" She grinned, slipping on a diamond bracelet that matched the decor we'd studied in the wedding photos. "Easy, I'll be the bride's long-lost college friend. And Marcus, he's the charming rogue who knows the groom's side." "Charming rogue," I muttered, shaking my head. That about sums him up. The target was a rare sapphire necklace, passed down through the bride's family for generations. Rumor had it the piece was worth a fortune, not just monetarily, but historically. Tonight, it was to be displayed as part of the wedding's ostentatious theme, a way for the family to flex its wealth. The security was tight, of course, but we'd spent months studying every detail, floor plans, guest lists, and even the caterer's schedules. As we walked into the venue, an opulent estate with chandeliers that looked like they cost more than my entire life savings, I felt the weight of the task ahead. Clara slid effortlessly into character, laughing and chatting with strangers as though she truly belonged. Marcus winked at me before disappearing into the crowd, likely to charm some unsuspecting bridesmaid into sharing useful gossip. Me? I found myself hovering near the champagne table, nursing a flute and scanning the room. The necklace was in a glass display case at the far end of the hall, guarded by two burly men in black suits. It sparkled under the lights, a beacon for anyone daring, or foolish, enough to try what we were about to do. "Jack, focus!" Clara's voice crackled softly in my earpiece. "You're supposed to be the watchful one, remember?" "I'm watching," I muttered, eyeing the guards. "Not exactly low-profile security." "That's why you're the distraction," Marcus chimed in, his voice annoyingly cheerful. "Start acting like you're supposed to be here, mate. Mingle, dance, hell, maybe even smile." I gritted my teeth and forced myself to move. The room was a sea of laughter and clinking glasses, the scent of expensive perfume mingling with fresh flowers. I made small talk with a man who couldn't stop bragging about his vintage car collection, nodded politely at a woman who insisted on showing me photos of her dog, and finally found myself near the display case. The guards eyed me suspiciously, but I gave them a polite nod and moved on. My job wasn't to get too close. Yet. Clara's role was to draw attention away from the case when the time came, while Marcus would handle the actual swap. My job was to make sure nothing went wrong. "Jack," Clara's voice interrupted my thoughts. "Bride's father is heading your way. Play nice." I turned to see a tall, imposing man in a tailored suit striding toward me. His sharp eyes scanned the room before landing on me. "You're one of the groom's friends, aren't you?" he asked, extending a hand. "That's right," I said smoothly, shaking his hand. "Jack Harper." We met briefly at the engagement party. His brow furrowed for a moment before he nodded. "Ah, yes, good to see you again. Enjoying the evening?" "Absolutely," I lied. "Beautiful event. Your daughter looks stunning." "She does," he said, his expression softening. "Family tradition, you know. Every woman in our family wears the necklace on her wedding day, a symbol of unity and strength." My stomach twisted. This wasn't just a piece of jewelry to them. It was a legacy. But I pushed the thought aside. A job was a job. As the father of the bride moved on, I glanced toward Marcus, who gave me a subtle nod from across the room. It was almost time. Clara's voice came through the earpiece, steady and calm. "Positions, everyone. The first dance is about to start. That's our window." I took a deep breath and set down my champagne glass. The clock was ticking, and the real show was about to begin. The room hushed as the bride and groom took to the dance floor. All eyes were on them, the soft strains of a string quartet filling the air. Clara's voice crackled in my ear again. "Jack, this is it. You're up. Start moving toward the terrace. Marcus will take care of the guards in 30 seconds." I shifted through the crowd, careful not to draw attention to myself. The first dance was designed to captivate the guests, keeping them transfixed while we put our plan into motion. I glanced toward Marcus, who had positioned himself near the guards by the display case. He held a flute of champagne in one hand, gesturing animatedly as he spoke to the guards. "Listen, gentlemen," Marcus said with an air of drunken charm, his voice carrying over the music. "I've just heard the most absurd rumor. They say the dessert table features a soufflé that could rival Paris's finest. Can you believe that?" The guards exchanged glances, their expressions caught between irritation and amusement. Marcus leaned in conspiratorially. "You know, I have it on good authority that one of you deserves a break. Why don't you go check it out? I'll keep an eye on the necklace for you." "Not happening, sir," one of the guards replied, his voice gruff. "Please enjoy the party and move along." Marcus didn't flinch. Instead, he spilled a bit of champagne on his sleeve and staggered forward. "Oh no, my jacket! This is custom tailored. Excuse me, do you have a napkin?" In the momentary chaos, Clara stepped in from the other side. She was all grace and poise, her voice like honey. "Oh dear, Marcus, what have you done? Please, gentlemen, let me help him. He's a menace at these events." The guards hesitated, clearly unsure of how to handle the distraction. As they argued, I slipped out onto the terrace. The cool night air was a stark contrast to the warm, crowded ballroom. Beyond the terrace lay the garden, a maze of hedges and sculptures that would provide a perfect cover for our escape. "Jack, status?" Clara's voice was calm but firm in my ear. "I'm in position," I whispered, ducking behind a large potted plant. "What's your status?" "Marcus is creating a scene," she replied dryly. "Give him a minute." I peered through the glass doors, watching the exchange unfold. Marcus, now dramatically wiping his jacket, somehow managed to spill more champagne on one of the guards. Clara was holding his arm, apologizing profusely, her performance Oscar-worthy. The guards were visibly annoyed, but still rooted in place. "Marcus, you're pushing it," I muttered under my breath. "Relax, Jack," Marcus's voice chimed in, cool as ever. "I've got this under control." Finally, one of the guards turned toward the second, muttering something. Marcus's distraction had done its job. Their attention was on him and Clara, not the necklace. "Now," Clara whispered. "Jack, you're up." "Marcus, hold them for 20 more seconds." I moved quickly, entering the ballroom again through a side door. The dance floor was still the center of attention, the bride and groom spinning under a canopy of twinkling lights. No one noticed as I slipped behind the display case, my heart pounding. The glass case was a work of art in itself, but I'd studied its mechanism for weeks. I pulled a small toolkit from inside my jacket and got to work. The lock was tricky but not impossible. As I worked, Clara's voice kept me grounded. 15 seconds, Jack," she said. "Make it count." "Almost there," I muttered, my fingers flying. The lock clicked, and the case opened silently. I carefully lifted the sapphire necklace, its weight heavier than I'd expected. It was dazzling, even under the dim lights of the ballroom. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of guilt. This wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was history, a symbol of love and family. "Jack, focus," Clara urged. "Swap it." I shook off the hesitation and pulled out the replica. Months of work had gone into crafting an identical copy, down to the tiniest scratch on the clasp. I placed the fake necklace in the case and closed the glass, making sure the lock clicked into place. "Done," I whispered. "Good, now get out of there," Clara said. I stepped back into the crowd, blending in as if nothing had happened. Marcus was still arguing with the guards, his voice growing louder. Finally, Clara intervened, pulling him away with an exasperated sigh. "So sorry, gentlemen," she said. "I'll take him outside to cool off." With the guards distracted, I slipped back onto the terrace. The necklace was safe in my jacket pocket, but the hardest part was yet to come. We still had to make it out without raising suspicion. "Jack, meet me in the garden," Clara said. "Marcus will catch up once he's done playing the fool." On my way, I replied, heading toward the shadows of the garden maze. As I moved through the hedges, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Everything had gone according to plan so far, but the night was far from over. If there was one thing I'd learned in this business, it was that nothing ever stayed simple for long. The garden maze was eerily quiet, the sound of the party muffled by rows of neatly trimmed hedges. The soft glow of lanterns dotted along the paths cast long shadows, making it harder to distinguish one turn from another. I kept my hand in my jacket pocket, gripping the necklace tightly. Every step felt heavier, as though the air itself had thickened with tension. "Jack, status?" Clara's voice buzzed in my ear. "I'm in the maze," I whispered. "Where are you?" "Close. I'll meet you at the central fountain. Stay sharp." The plan was to rendezvous in the heart of the garden before moving toward the service gate at the far end. From there, we'd blend into the valet chaos, disappear into our getaway car, and vanish into the night. Easy enough on paper, but every rustling branch and distant laugh made my nerves prickle. I took a right turn, then a left, moving deeper into the maze. The hedges seemed to grow taller, the paths narrower. The central fountain wasn't far, but my sense of direction was starting to betray me. "Jack!" Marcus's voice came through, tinged with a rare note of urgency. "Got a problem. One of the guards noticed something's off with the case." "What do you mean, noticed?" I hissed, my pulse quickening. "He's calling it in. They're trying to verify the necklace's authenticity right now. You've got minutes, maybe less, before they figure out it's a fake." "Damn it," I muttered. "Clara, what's the play?" Clara's voice was steady, but I could hear the tension beneath her calm tone. "Stick to the plan. Jack, get to the fountain. Marcus, buy us time. Stall them however you can." "Copy that," Marcus replied. The maze twisted and turned, each path looking identical to the last. I was about to take another left when I heard voices, faint but distinct. Someone was moving through the maze, their footsteps crunching on the gravel paths. "Clara," I whispered, ducking into a shadowed corner. "I'm not alone in here." "Who?" she asked sharply. "Not sure. Could be a guest, could be security. Either way, they're close. Stay out of sight. We can't risk exposure." The voices grew louder, accompanied by the flicker of flashlights. My heart raced as I crouched behind the hedge, the rough branches snagging on my jacket. Two men appeared at the intersection ahead, their movements deliberate. Security guards. "Split up," one of them said. "Check every path. We need to make sure no one's back here." They turned in opposite directions, one heading straight toward me. My mind scrambled for an escape route. Running would make noise, and doubling back could lead me right into the other guard. "Clara," I murmured, barely audible. "They're sweeping the maze." "Hold your position," she said. "Let them pass." I pressed myself further into the shadows, holding my breath as the guard approached. His flashlight beam swept across the hedge, illuminating the leaves just inches from my face. I tightened my grip on the necklace, willing myself to remain still. The guard paused, his light lingering on the hedge for a moment too long. I could hear the faint crackle of his radio, followed by a garbled voice. "Nothing so far," the other guard reported. "Same here," he replied, lowering his flashlight. "I'll keep looking." As soon as he moved on, I exhaled shakily. The close call had left my nerves frayed, but there was no time to dwell on it. I crept out of my hiding spot and continued toward the fountain, every step feeling like an eternity. Finally, I reached the heart of the maze. The central fountain was an ornate masterpiece, its cascading water shimmering in the lantern light. Clara was already there, pacing near the edge. She looked up as I approached, her expression a mix of relief and urgency. "You've got it?" she asked. I pulled the necklace from my pocket, holding it up briefly before tucking it away again. "It's safe. What about Marcus?" "He's still stalling," she said. "But we're running out of time. The guards are already suspicious, and if they catch wind of us—" "Then let's not give them the chance," I interrupted. "Where's the exit?" "Follow me," Clara said, leading the way down a narrow path. As we moved, the voices of the guards grew fainter, replaced by the distant hum of the party. My shoulders relaxed slightly, but the weight of the heist still hung heavy over us. We weren't out of danger yet. "Marcus," Clara said into her earpiece, We're heading to the service gate. What's your status? Not great, he replied. The guards are doubling down. They've got someone checking the guest list now. If they notice we don't belong, they won't, Clara said firmly. Just keep them busy a little longer. The service gate was just ahead, a nondescript exit tucked away behind the garden. Beyond it, the valet area bustled with activity, cars pulling in and out as guests arrived or left. Our getaway car was parked a few blocks away, ready to take us far from this chaos. Clara stopped at the gate, peeking out to ensure the coast was clear. Jack, you go first. I'll cover our exit. I nodded and slipped through the gate, the cool night air hitting me like a wave. Freedom was so close I could taste it. But as I moved toward the valet area, something caught my eye, a figure standing near the edge of the lot, watching the garden intently. It wasn't a guest, and it definitely wasn't valet staff. Clara, I whispered, we've got company. The figure in the shadows didn't move, but his posture radiated authority, broad shoulders, sharp suit, and a stance that screamed law enforcement or private security. My stomach twisted as I ducked behind a parked car, keeping my eyes on him. Clara, I hissed into the earpiece, we've got a problem. There's someone watching the garden exit. Looks like he's waiting for something, or someone. Describe him, Clara responded immediately, her voice all business. Mid-40s, black suit, earpiece, definitely not a guest. Clara cursed under her breath. That's Damian Lennox, the groom's personal security chief. He's ex-military, private contractor. This guy's no joke. If he's out here, it means he knows something's up. Fantastic, I muttered. So what's the plan? We can't just stroll past him. Hold tight, Clara said. I could hear the gears turning in her head. Let me think. As I crouched behind the car, I glanced toward the valet stand. The employees were busy juggling keys and cars, oblivious to the tension brewing just a few feet away. If I could blend in with them, maybe I could slip out unnoticed, but not with Lennox standing there. Clara, Marcus's voice crackled through. They're on to us. I just heard one of the guards call for a perimeter sweep. We've got maybe 5 minutes before they lock this place down. Damn it, Clara said. Jack, listen carefully. You're going to have to create a diversion. A diversion? I repeated, incredulous. There's one of him and one of me. I don't like those odds. Relax, Clara replied. You're not taking him head on. You're going to make him think the threat is somewhere else. How exactly am I supposed to do that? Clara's voice was sharp. See the row of parked cars near the valet stand? Pop one of their alarms. Make it loud, draw him away, then double back to the main road. I'll meet you there. Sure, no problem, I muttered sarcastically. Let me just wave my magic wand. But sarcasm wouldn't get me out of this mess, and Clara's plan was the best option we had. I moved cautiously between the cars, staying low and keeping my movements deliberate. Lennox hadn't moved, but his head was swiveling slightly, scanning the area. I stopped at a sleek black SUV, its shiny exterior reflecting the warm glow of the garden lights. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out a thin strip of metal, one of Marcus's tools for unexpected situations, and slipped it between the driver's side window and door. It took a few tense moments, but eventually the alarm blared to life, a shrill symphony of honks and wails that shattered the evening calm. Lennox turned immediately, his sharp eyes locking onto the source of the noise. Without hesitation, he moved toward the SUV, his hand resting on something at his hip, likely a concealed weapon. I didn't wait to see what he'd do next. Darting back the way I came, I slipped through the service gate and into the chaos of the valet stand. The startled employees barely registered me as I ducked past them, blending into the crowd of guests milling about the driveway. Jack, where are you? Clara's voice demanded in my ear. Heading for the road, I whispered. What about Marcus? Still inside, she said. He's trying to buy us a little more time, but we're cutting it close. The main road loomed ahead, a quiet stretch of asphalt lined with towering oak trees. Our getaway car was parked just beyond a bend, hidden from view. I jogged toward it, my heart hammering in my chest. Clara was waiting by the car, her expression grim. Where's the necklace? I pulled it from my pocket, holding it up for her to see. The rare family heirloom, an ornate diamond pendant shaped like a teardrop, gleamed in the moonlight. Good, she said. Now we just have to get Marcus and we're... A sudden noise cut her off, the sound of hurried footsteps on gravel. We both turned to see Marcus sprinting toward us, his tie loosened and his face flushed. "Move!" he shouted. Behind him, a pair of security guards were hot on his heels, their radios crackling with urgent commands. "Get in the car!" Clara barked, yanking the door open. Marcus dove into the back seat just as Clara slid behind the wheel. I barely had time to shut the passenger door before she floored the accelerator, the tires screeching as we sped away. The guards shouted after us, their voices fading as we rounded the bend and disappeared into the night. "That was too close," Marcus panted, collapsing against the seat. "No kidding," Clara snapped. "What happened?" "They started checking guest IDs," Marcus explained. "I managed to slip out before they got to me, but I had to run." "Well, at least we made it," I said, clutching the necklace. "Let's just hope it was worth the trouble." Clara glanced at me, her eyes sharp. "Oh, it will be. Trust me." As the city lights grew brighter in the distance, I couldn't shake the feeling that our escape was just the beginning of another storm. The city skyline came into view as we sped along the highway, the distant glow of skyscrapers reflecting off the dark water of the bay. Clara's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles pale in the dim light of the dashboard. The tension in the car was thick, even as the adrenaline of our escape began to ebb. Marcus leaned forward from the back seat, his voice low and urgent. "What's our next move?" "We're still too close to the estate. Lennox is no amateur. He'll already have their private security tracing us." Clara nodded sharply. "We switch cars at the second drop point. The less time we spend in this one, the better." I glanced at the rear-view mirror, catching sight of Marcus's sweat-soaked face. "You good?" I asked. He gave a weak laugh. "Let's just say running in dress shoes wasn't part of the plan. But yeah, I'm fine." I turned my attention back to Clara. "How far is the second drop point?" 15 minutes, she replied, her eyes flicking between the road and the mirrors. "We'll ditch this car in the industrial zone near the docks and take the van. It's prepped and ready." I let out a breath, leaning back in my seat. My fingers brushed against the pocket where the necklace was tucked away, its cool weight a constant reminder of why we'd risked everything. The heirloom was exquisite, centuries-old craftsmanship, with diamonds set so precisely they seemed to shimmer like water. It wasn't just valuable, it was priceless. But as I sat there, staring at the blur of streetlights outside, unease crept in. Clara had been unusually quiet ever since we left the estate, and Marcus's hurried escape didn't sit right with me. Something about the whole operation felt off. "Clara," I said cautiously, "you sure there's nothing else we need to worry about?" Lennox seemed way too prepared for this, like he knew someone was going to hit the wedding. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't look at me. "It's nothing we can't handle. Lennox is paranoid by nature. That's why they hired him." "Paranoia doesn't explain how he almost caught me," I pressed. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Look, Jack, we got out clean. Let's not overthink it, yeah? The necklace is ours and we're in the clear." I didn't respond, but the knot in my stomach only tightened. We reached the industrial zone a few minutes later, the car's headlights cutting through the gloom of empty warehouses and abandoned lots. Clara pulled into a secluded alley where a dark blue van sat waiting, its windows tinted and plates swapped out. "Everyone out," she ordered. We moved quickly, transferring the necklace and our gear into the van. Clara popped the sedan's hood and pulled a small device from her bag, a signal jammer to fry the car's GPS tracker. As Marcus climbed into the van, I pulled Clara aside. "Talk to me," I said quietly. "What aren't you telling me?" She hesitated, her eyes narrowing. "Nothing that changes the plan. Let's just get to the safe house." I grabbed her arm. "Clara, don't play games with me. If there's a problem, I need to know." For a moment, her expression softened, and I thought she might actually tell me the truth. But then her walls went back up. "Trust me, Jack," she said, pulling away. "Everything's under control." I didn't believe her, but there was no time to argue. The van roared to life as Clara slid into the driver's seat, and we took off, weaving through the labyrinth of side streets until we merged back onto the highway. The safe house was an unassuming two-story building on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by overgrown bushes and a sagging chain-link fence. Inside, it was bare but functional. Cots in one room, a small kitchen, and a worn-out couch in the living area. Clara parked the van around back, where it couldn't be seen from the road. "We'll lay low here for a couple of days," she announced as we unloaded. "No phones, no outside contact. Marcus, secure the necklace in the safe. Jack, double-check the perimeter." "On it," I said, though my frustration was growing. Clara's tight-lipped attitude was getting under my skin. I did a quick sweep of the property, checking windows, doors, and the surrounding area. Everything seemed quiet, but my instincts were screaming that something wasn't right. When I returned to the living room, Marcus was sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine he'd found. The necklace was locked away, and Clara was in the kitchen pouring herself a drink. "All clear," and I said. Clara nodded, but her tension was still palpable. "All right," she said, raising her glass. "Here's to a successful job." Marcus and I exchanged glances, then reluctantly joined her. But as I raised my glass, I couldn't shake the feeling that the job was far from over, and that the real danger was just beginning. The tension in the safe house was suffocating. Hours passed, but the unease that had settled in my gut only grew stronger. Clara retreated to the bedroom upstairs, claiming she needed rest, while Marcus sprawled on the couch, idly shuffling a deck of cards. "Care for a game?" Marcus asked, glancing up at me. "Not in the mood," I muttered, pacing the length of the living room. The faint hum of the fridge was the only sound besides the occasional creak of the house settling. "Suit yourself," Marcus said, but his tone was too casual, too forced. I couldn't ignore the feeling that I was being played. Clara's cryptic behavior, Marcus's jittery demeanor, it all pointed to something bigger than just a high-stakes heist. I decided to test the waters. "You know," I said, leaning against the wall, "I keep thinking about how close Lennox came to catching us. Feels like he knew we were coming." Marcus froze mid-shuffle, his eyes narrowing slightly before he recovered. "Lennox is sharp, but we were sharper. We got out, didn't we?" "Yeah, but what if he had inside help? Someone feeding him intel?" The cards slipped from Marcus's hands, scattering across the floor. He cursed under his breath, kneeling to gather them. "You accusing me of something, Jack?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "Not yet," I said, crossing my arms. "But it's funny how you were the one who said Lennox wouldn't be a problem. And then he almost nails us." Marcus straightened, his jaw tight. "If you've got something to say it." "All right," I said, stepping closer. "Did you tip him off?" Marcus's face twisted in anger, but before he could respond, Clara's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "That's enough," she said, descending the stairs. Her eyes were sharp, her posture rigid. "Clara, you know something's off here," I said, turning to her. "You've been acting strange ever since we left the estate. What aren't you telling us?" She hesitated, her gaze flicking between me and Marcus. Finally, she let out a sigh. "Fine," she said. "You want the truth? Lennox wasn't caught off guard because he was tipped off." Marcus's face went pale. "What the hell are you talking about?" Clara ignored him, her focus solely on me. "I made a deal with Lennox before the heist. He knew we were coming, but I promised him a cut of the take if he let us get away." "You what?" I said, my voice rising. "It was the only way to ensure we'd survive," Clara snapped. "Do you really think we could have outsmarted him without inside knowledge?" "Lennox is one of the best in the business," Marcus exploded. "So you sold us out? You planned to double-cross us this whole time?" "No," Clara said firmly. "I planned to get us all out alive. But now that you're bringing up betrayal," her eyes narrowed. "Maybe we should talk about your phone call to Lennox the night before the heist, Marcus." Marcus's mouth opened, but no words came out. "Thought I wouldn't find out?" Clara continued. "You were hedging your bets, weren't you? Making sure you'd walk away clean, no matter what." "That's a lie," Marcus shouted, but the guilt in his eyes was unmistakable. I stepped back, my mind racing. The two of them were at each other's throats, each accusing the other of betrayal. And then it hit me. If both of them had been playing their own angles, where did that leave me? I reached for the gun tucked into my waistband, my instincts screaming that this was about to go south fast. "Enough," I barked, cutting through their argument. "Both of you, sit down." Now. Clara and Marcus froze, their eyes locking onto the weapon in my hand. "We're going to sort this out," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside me. But first, we're opening that safe. I want to see the necklace. Clara frowned. Why? It's right where we left it. Humor me, I said. Reluctantly, Clara walked to the corner of the room where the safe was hidden behind a false panel. She punched in the code and swung the door open. The safe was empty. What the? Marcus started, but Clara whirled on him. You son of a... It wasn't me, Marcus shouted, raising his hands defensively. I felt my stomach drop. Someone had gotten to the necklace, and none of us had noticed. All right, I said, my grip tightening on the gun. Nobody's leaving this room until we figure out what the hell is going on. Clara and Marcus exchanged wary glances, the air between them crackling with distrust. But as I stared at the empty safe, one thought kept running through my mind. If the necklace was gone, who else was playing us? The room was a pressure cooker, and I was holding the lid down. Clara and Marcus sat on opposite ends of the couch, their hostility palpable, while I paced in front of the empty safe. The necklace was gone, and none of us had the slightest clue who had taken it, or at least that's what they wanted me to believe. Clara broke the silence first. You think I took it? Why would I? I'm the one who planned this whole thing. Without me, you'd still be fumbling for a way into the estate, Marcus scoffed. Oh, please. Like you haven't been playing the long game since day one. You made a deal with Lennox, Clara. Who's to say you didn't make another one? Stop deflecting, Clara shot back. You've been shady since this job started. Sneaking off, taking phone calls, acting like you're smarter than the rest of us. I held up my hand. Enough. Both of you. They glared at each other, but at least they shut up. I needed a clear head to figure this out. The fact that the necklace was gone meant there was a fourth player in this game. Someone who'd been one step ahead of us the entire time. Let's think this through, I said. When was the last time any of us saw the necklace? When we put it in the safe, Clara said, crossing her arms. Which was yesterday, Marcus added. You're telling me someone broke in here and took it without us noticing? That's insane. Insane or not, it happened, I said. So who knew about this place? Who had access? Clara hesitated. No one. I picked this safe house because it's off the radar. No paper trail, no connections to any of us. Except Lennox, Marcus muttered. Clara's eyes flashed. I told you, Lennox doesn't know about this place. Maybe he doesn't, I said, cutting her off. But if you made a deal with him, he might have found a way to track us. Or maybe you underestimated him. Clara opened her mouth to argue, but then froze. Her eyes flicked to the window, her expression shifting to one of alarm. What is it? I asked, following her gaze. Outside, she whispered. I thought I saw something move. Marcus jumped to his feet, grabbing a knife from the kitchen counter. I drew my gun, motioning for Clara to stay put. The three of us crept toward the window, the tension thick enough to choke on. I peeked through the blinds and saw nothing. Just the empty alley behind the house, bathed in the flickering glow of a street lamp. False alarm, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Marcus grumbled. We're jumping at shadows now? Great. I was about to lower my weapon when a faint sound reached my ears. A soft rustling, like fabric brushing against wood. It was coming from the back door. Stay here, I whispered, motioning for Clara and Marcus to keep quiet. I moved toward the back of the house, my steps silent, my grip firm on the gun. The sound grew louder as I approached, and my heart hammered in my chest. I rounded the corner and aimed my weapon at the source of the noise. It was a cat, a scrawny gray tabby pawing at the garbage can outside. I let out a shaky breath and lowered the gun. False alarm again, I called out, returning to the living room. But the moment I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. Clara and Marcus were gone. Clara! Marcus! I shouted, my voice echoing through the empty house. No response. I checked the front door. It was wide open. Cursing under my breath, I ran outside, scanning the street. A pair of taillights disappeared around the corner, and I knew I was too late. They'd bailed, and one of them, maybe both, had the necklace. I stood there for a long moment, the cool night air biting at my skin. I'd been played, just like I feared. But by who? Clara? Marcus? Both of them? The questions swirled in my head, but one thing was clear. I wasn't done yet. They thought they could cut me out of the score, but I wasn't going down without a fight. 2 weeks later, I sat in a dingy bar on the outskirts of town, nursing a drink and watching the news on the TV mounted above the counter. Police have recovered the stolen family heirloom known as the Elysian necklace, the anchor reported. The artifact was anonymously delivered to authorities, accompanied by an unsigned note claiming it was a misunderstanding. I smirked, swirling the amber liquid in my glass. Clara and Marcus had burned themselves out, just like I knew they would. Maybe they turned on each other, or maybe guilt got the better of them. Either way, the necklace was off the table now. But that wasn't the end of the story, because while they were busy tying themselves in knots, I'd been busy too. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside was a flawless replica of the Elysian necklace, the real one, the one I'd swapped out before Clara ever put it in the safe. They thought they'd played me, but I'd been playing the long game all along. As I finished my drink, I couldn't help but chuckle. Some partnerships aren't meant to last. But for me, the score was just beginning.